Hello, welcome to Managing in the Moment, the weekly show brought to you always by Improv EQ. It is team building, strategy, and management coaching, really here to help you have the strongest, most engaged team and then increase productivity. So that's really what Improv EQ is all about. This show, Managing in the Moment, is for you if you are a people manager and you supervise people and are looking for more effective ways to bring your team together and to get work done. So I am your host, Betsaida. I am the founder of Improv EQ, as well as a team building strategist and a management coach. So typically, the show, I get to bring some really awesome people and do interviews with them and talk about management from different perspectives and have these great conversations. This week is going to be just a little bit different. You have me for the entirety of the time. And so this is going to be live, which is a lot of fun that I get to do that. And what we're talking about today is all about employee engagement and when it comes to relationship building. So I want to talk to you about why that's so important, why that's so key to employee engagement is the foundation of the relationship that you have with your team, especially as a manager. So that's really what I'm going to be talking about today and give you some things to think about and also some things to do to really make an impact when it comes to in keeping your employees engaged. And we all know that that's really important right now. We're going to talk a lot about kind of the resignation, the great resignation that's happening. And, there's a lot that's going on, a lot that's up in the air, and a lot of things that as a manager, I've been hearing from you that there's a lot of concern. So to get into that, I don't want to, highlight the problems without offering you some solutions and some things to think about. So, as I always say in different ways, that I know that it's not easy to be a manager. So I've been a people manager myself and continue to support people managers, and I know how difficult that job can be, and especially right now when we're looking at people completely, right? And so a lot of things are shifting, and we're going to talk about that. And so I know that if you're even here watching the show, it's because you care about your people, you care about your team, you care about doing a good job and taking care of those that you're responsible for supervising. So I want to just commend you right now that you're here, and let's get into what we have to talk about today. So the pandemic has changed dramatically the way that we work. There are so many things that have happened because of how we've shifted how we work. And one of the things about the pandemic that has been huge that we all know is really the places in which we work. And so it used to be, right, so I'll call that yesterday's workforce was office first. People would come into the office, Monday through Friday. It was a set schedule. This was really how most of us did our work pre-pandemic. And then there was, an option to work from home, but most of us were based in the office. And so that is really how it used to be pre-pandemic. And then with when the pandemic, we all moved to remote work, fully remote. So some people were doing remote first and then would go into the office. But during the pandemic, we all moved to this fully remote where everybody was working from home, just not in the office. And then the other side is this hybrid, which is where some of us are now, where some people are back in the office, some people are still working from home. And you can see that today's workplace, it kind of stretches the gamut of all these different places of where people can work. And it's becoming harder than ever really to keep employees connected and cared for because of where we physically are. And you have to be a lot more intentional when it comes to connection. So not only did the pandemic change where we work, right? It also has given employees and workers an opportunity to reevaluate the why. So it has also changed why we work, why we show up, and what matters to us. And there's a lot of people who have had an opportunity to really reevaluate if what they're doing works for them for a lot of reasons. And so it has really given people an opportunity to think about their work and if what they're doing still fills them up in the way that they would want it to, and if it motivates them to keep continuing to show up. And I think that's one of the main reasons that we're kind of seeing this great resignation. So, I mean, you have to know, I think everyone has been paying attention to the news and this great resignation that is happening. And right now, almost 20 million of US workers have quit their job, and that's just since April of this year, which is a huge, that's a staggering number. And we know that more than 50% of workers are looking to change jobs within 12 months. So those who haven't left but are considering and are looking for something, and they want to do that within the next year. So this is big. This is a really big thing, and that's why leaders are paying attention a lot more to how their employees feel, because they're recognizing that this idea of employee, what they kind of took for granted almost pre-pandemic, right? And this just assumed that employees would have loyalty. It's not the same as it used to be. And it's not that employees aren't loyal, but their values have changed, their priorities have shifted, right? So now employees are really the largest stakeholder in a company. You think about, before, we used to always say, the customer is always right. You think about everything that you would do for your stakeholders, for the board, but really now more than ever, it's the employees. And you got to think about the employees. Are they happy? Do they want to stay? Are they productive? Can we continue to keep them here and keep them happy, right? This is huge. They really are the largest stakeholder in your company. What is really interesting to me is when you look at the data that highlights the difference between what leaders are seeing and what workers are seeing, is that a lot of the leaders through this pandemic have said, 61% of them have said that they're thriving, where only 38% of the workers feel like they are thriving right now, right? And middle managers, you're in a unique position because you're kind of somewhere in between, because you're not executive leadership, and that, like, everyone else is doing the work. I think this is executive leadership we're talking about, but you're also not just on the ground floor, and you're in this weird space where you're taking care of more people in the day to day. And so but this divide is huge, and I think that middle managers kind of fall in that middle of that gap because they're not really being taken care of in the same way. So this is really interesting just to see where there's this disconnect, and to look at it even generationally. It is the younger generations at work are more likely to be looking for another job and are looking for their exit, right? So you see how baby boomers is only 33%. When we get to Gen X, it's 43%. But millennials and Gen Z, it's 63 and 77% that are looking to change. And this is huge because this is a big part of the workforce that you need to be thinking about, and those that are coming in. And the reason for that, right, is that there's a lot of research that shows that the younger working generations are interested in making a difference, right? There's a lot of things that they want to see reflected in the work that they do, right? So this idea of, like, I just show up for a paycheck is not this newer generation's view of how they do things. And so that's really important, because that's an opportunity for us as middle managers, as leaders, to really be able to make the work someplace that they want to be, to make your organization a place where they're excited to show up. And it's interesting because it's not just about the money. When asked about this idea of the Great Resignation, 5% of leaders have this belief that this, the turnover that's happening, losing employees, that it's going to elevate or increase. Only 5% of them think that, it's going to continue this way, or it's going to maybe get more significant. But when you ask employees, 64% of them think that this is going to continue, right? So you can see, again, there's this divide. And so the employees are telling us, if we're listening, right, that this is this is changing how we're doing things. This isn't something that's going to be a quick one and done. This is something that there is a bigger shift. And this is what I believe. There's a bigger shift that is happening with the way that we work fundamentally, that how we work and why we work and when we work and all of this is absolutely shifting. And so when you ask employees what the important factors are to them, like why they come to work, what is it that they want out of their job, what keeps them, and this is the order in which they evaluated that. So feeling valued by the organization as a whole, but as a manager as well. Do their managers value them? Do their immediate supervisor value them? Do they feel that sense of value and acknowledgement? A sense of belonging, which is huge. That's number two. Work-life balance, having caring and trusted teammates, being able to have a flexible work schedule, the potential for advancement, and feeling engaged by work, and also a workload that is reasonable. So those are the reasons in order why employees want to stay, or maybe why employees choose to leave, right? If they don't have these things. But when you ask the employers, what do they believe is important to their staff, to their employees, what they think, they really highlighted work-life balance, feeling engaged at work and workload, right? And you see that what's missing, and this is the part to me that's the most interesting, is that gap. Again, I keep being focused on the gap because that's where we're not quite understanding each other, and that's where there's opportunity. It is that they are not feeling valued by the organization and managers, right? That sense of belonging, having caring and trusting teammates, the flexible work schedule, and the potential for advancement. And so the ones that are in bold here, they stand out to me because they're not only at the top of the list, but they're also about relationships. And that is the piece of employee engagement that is huge. It is the piece where, as a manager, and this is what excites me, you can tell, like I'm getting a little bit pumped here, is that this is an opportunity for managers really can make an impact when it comes to employee engagement because it is about relationships. It's about the relationship that you have with your staff, the relationships that you are able to foster among staff with each other. And it's all about relationships. So what I love is that there's hope in that to me. There's absolutely hope in building stronger relationships that you have with your team. And it takes time and effort to build these relationships, but it is so important because that is where we feel valued, right? Think of if, and this has happened for some people, where the staff is unsure. Like when we talk about the pandemic and the idea of coming back to work, and not everybody felt the same way about coming back to work, right? There was a huge range of different feelings about coming back and being physically back in the office. And so for people who were forced to come back to the office before they were ready, that sent them a message that they as a person were not as important as the bottom line in the organization. And no matter what, right? If that's the message that you're getting, that doesn't feel good. And we all have a desire as humans to be valued and to be appreciated. And whenever work makes us feel like like we are expendable, that we are just a cog in a machine, and we're not seen as complete and humans, as people, that takes a toll on us and it makes us less willing to show up and give our best, right? So I think about the different organizations. I know there was a lot of staff with Apple when they were forced to come back and that they didn't feel like they were being heard. And that was a big to do there because we had a lot of people that resigned on the spot, right? Teachers who were forced to come back to meet certain expectations. And again, it was more because there wasn't a conversation and people they didn't feel valued. And this doesn't just have to be about the pandemic. This can be about a lot of things when we are not taking into account what somebody needs and hearing them and then just making blanket decisions for our staff, you make them feel like they are not important and that they are expendable. And that is the opposite of engagement. Somebody who is engaged feels like they are a necessary part of what is happening, right? If you don't feel like you are a necessary part, then you're not engaged. And so that is something that I want to encourage every single person to really be thinking about. What are the things that you can be doing to really value and see your staff fully and completely and get to know them, get to know each one of them because they're all going to be really different. And in building these relationships, right? What that does is it helps people to understand that they are more than just the job. And we are all more than just our work, right? We are not just our work. We are complete humans. And if we care about our work, that's really great. But there's so much more to us than just our work. So when you're talking to your staff, which I hope that you do regularly, right? You want to find ways to talk to them about things outside of work. How are they doing, right? That's a really great place to start. Just get to know who they are, what they're doing, what are the things that they love and that they value, what are the parts of the job that they really enjoy, right? What are the parts that maybe they're struggling with? What are their hopes and outs, maybe even not connected to their work? What do they get to do for fun? What brings them joy? What are the things that really light them up, right? And then finding out how you can support them in making that part of the work that they're doing. So you might find out like that a staff member really loves helping others or teaching. That would be an opportunity to have them be a mentor, right? And you learn some of these things. Some of the things that people tell you are not related to work, right? They might be telling you about something else that they're doing and finding ways that you can support them either through work or just by hearing them and caring about them as full beings is going to be so, so huge. The piece of that is really important is that it's all about connection. When you get to know them, you understand who they are, and when you can feel connected to them, the thing that doctors have found out, the sisters Amelia and Emily Nagoski, in their recent book, were talking really about burnout and this idea of burnout, which we all are familiar with at this point. A couple episodes back, I was talking to Dr. Tommy Mitchell about burnout and how it affects all of us. And these doctors talk about really the cure for burnout is connection. And so if you want to take care of your people, it is all about connecting with them, about building these relationships. And I think it just starts with getting to know who your people are on a very, very basic level, and also being relatable. So that's another piece of like, if you want to build a relationship with someone, you also have to work at being relatable. So what that means for managers, and this can be hard, is to recognize that you are human as well. So if you want to relate to other humans, you got to do that as a human. So that means being able to be vulnerable, being able to tell your staff when maybe you don't have all the answers or you don't know what's happening. Let them know that. There are so many times where I have talked to managers and they didn't know that they could say, I don't know. They felt like they couldn't. They had to have all of the answers. And I promise you that your staff is not looking to you for all of the answers. They're looking to you to know that you're in it together, right? And sometimes it's more helpful if you can encourage someone of like how to find the answer, where to go to get the answer, than if you always have the answer to provide them, right? You're not an encyclopedia, right? Or I guess modern times, you're not Wikipedia, right? You don't have to be that for them. That's not what your staff is asking for. What they're asking for is for support. So if you're there to be able to give them support, show your humanity, show that you are a real person. When you ask how they're doing, also tell them how you're doing. It's not just about your staff. It's not just about taking care of them. It's also an opportunity for you to be able to say what you need and find your support. So hopefully you have a supervisor who knows how to support you, and lean on them And if not, your peers, find where your support is. And if you need any help in kind of figuring out how to support yourself, how to take care of your team, and to build more engagement, build that camaraderie, that communication, that collaboration on your team, I really encourage you, reach out. Talk to me. I would love to help you and support you on this journey as you build and take care of your team and really think about the different ways that you can keep employee engagement high by taking care of your people, seeing them fully. And I promise you that that is going to really, really be helpful. And if you're struggling right now with burnout on your team, I want to offer you a free course that I have actually online that is about supporting your team and beating burnout. So that is totally free. And if you are interested in that, I want to offer that to you from Improv EQ just to help you and figure out what is the things that you can do, some actual questions that you can start to think about asking and some action items for moving forward. So take care of yourself first and foremost, because this is not an easy job taking care of people. And when you're good and you have what you need, right, you can take care of your people better. So thank you so much. This was so much fun, and I will see you next week.